John McClain with us on Tuesdays. The NFL draft a couple of weeks away, and he joins us here on 365 Sports. So, John, is it a given that the Texans take a quarterback with their first pick in the first round?
I certainly believe it is. There's a lot of national media that don't think so, and the closer we get, the wilder the speculation is, and a lot of people believe everything they read and hear. I believe very little of it. And one of the things they're saying is, if the Texans were involved in trade talks with Carolina, and that was reported by Peter King and Albert Breer, and that means they got one quarterback they like specifically. So if they don't get that quarterback, would they pivot to, say, an edge rusher like Alabama's Will Anderson, who's a tremendous prospect? And they do need an edge rusher, and everybody loves Will Anderson Jr., but there's one problem. Who's going to be the quarterback in D'Amico Ryans' first season? Davis Mills, who they've given up on, Case Keenum, who they signed to be a backup. That's like those reports just leave that little part out of it. That's why I tell people that this is what I believe about Young and Stroud. And I wrote a column last week, a deep dive on both of those guys, in which I talked to people at the league meetings. I checked with everybody I trust to see, what they thought of them as prospects. And both of them are great prospects. And it's like picking between a Mercedes, top-of-the-line Mercedes, and a top-of-the-line BMW. And you might like the Mercedes a little more, so you don't get it. Somebody else buys it. But you love the BMW too, so you take the BMW and you don't look back. That's what you got with Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud.
John, there was scuttlebutt this week, a theory that the Texans don't like Stroud's agent because he's also Deshaun Watson's agent. That's kind of silly too, isn't it?
That's silly, and anybody thinks that's an issue is clueless. David Mulligetta from Austin, who works for Athletes First, I'm sure he loves the Texans. He negotiated a great contract there for Watson. He even got the Texans to include a no-trade clause. He did what he's supposed to do for his client. And then his client got in trouble, no fault of the Texans, and he got him to Cleveland for $230 million, the greatest contract ever negotiated in the NFL. So the Texans have done everything David Mulligetta wants. And so every once in a while you'll see in baseball, some teams don't want to deal with Scott Boras because he's all about the money, and he has so many clients and he drives such a hard bargain. But in football, you don't see that.
John, what is the biggest offseason story that doesn't pertain to the draft for the Texans? And I guess I understand that increased quarterback play is draft related, but I would include that just in general. What is, I guess, not grabbing Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud the biggest story outside of having those top picks?
Well, the coaching. If it's not involved in the draft, it'd be the coaching. D'Amico Ryans is first-year head coach after being a great coordinator the last 2 years with the 49ers, where he spent 6 seasons. The other one is Bobby Slowick, who came with him from the 49ers. Bobby's offensive coordinator, play caller. Kyle Shanahan thinks he's going to be head coach in the NFL, and people know he would have had a better chance to do it quicker had he stayed with the 49ers. But he wanted to come here. He wanted to call plays. He wanted to discover the pitfalls of that, more responsibility, which he thinks in the long run will help him be a better head coach. So people here wondered for the first time, having a first-time offensive coordinator, and how that's going to pan out with a new quarterback and a lot of new players on offense.
Was the Odell Beckham signing by Baltimore also trying to hook in or secure Lamar Jackson, or is there so far apart it wouldn't matter?
Lamar Jackson's not going anywhere. Where's he going to go? Is he going to retire? And if somebody were going to sign him to an offer sheet, wouldn't they have already done it? The NFL does not want to go the Cleveland route and give up a guaranteed contract. And if you're going to do it, you do it for Patrick Mahomes first and foremost, maybe Joe Burrow, but I don't think he's going anywhere. He's not going to retire. He's not going to sit out and miss $32 million, which is more than he's made in his career. I think Beckham's going there for two reasons. He got a contract that looks terrible for the Ravens, $15 million guaranteed for a guy who's just had his knee repaired twice. But the Ravens need a number one receiver. And where if he'd have gone to the Jets, he might have been the third receiver. So it was smart for him to go to the Ravens. And people say, well, he wouldn't have gone there if Lamar Jackson hadn't told him he'll be there. For $15 million guaranteed, when they said at one point nobody was offered more than $4 million, I think he'd gone there no matter who's playing quarterback.
John McClain, Houston Chronicle for many, many years. Of course, now a part of GallerySports.com and 610 Sports Radio in Houston with us. The NFL Draft is a week and a half away. John, how much change of mind is there over these next few days leading up to the draft on the draft board?
One of the things that teams do, everybody is allowed to bring in 30 players for visits. You can have them for the day. They can't work out here. If you want to work them out, you got to go to them. I don't know what at this point you could see after watching on tape, pro day, combine, plus the fact you can work them out on your own if you want to. And the only good thing about a private workout is you orchestrate it. It's not like the pro day where the players rehearsed it with his receiver and his quarterback guru for weeks. And a lot of teams like to do that. A lot of teams put a lot of emphasis on seeing things like what the Texans saw in 2017 with Deshaun Watson. When he came to Houston, he went to NRG Stadium. Everywhere he went, when there were veterans working out, those veterans gravitated to him. And they watched to see how he handled that because he had cred. He had that street cred from winning a national championship over Alabama. And turned out to be, as on the field, turned out to be a great pick. And they're looking for that. Now, as far as scouting, and right before the draft, teams will have what's called cross-scouting, where they will have a defensive line coach look at offensive linemen, vice versa, and get their opinion on them. But by and large, if you don't know about the prospect at this point, you're not very good at what you do.
John, the Titans are in an interesting position with Ryan Tannehill expiring deal, Derrick Henry on an expiring deal, Rand Carthon's been brought in to rebuild them. Do you think that this is a tear-it-down draft for Tennessee?
If they're going to tear it down and start over, they're not going to be able to trade up to get a quarterback because it's going to cost them too much to do that. As long as Derrick Henry's on the team. He's 29, coming off a great season. As long as he's there, I don't see him rebuilding. If they're going to rebuild, they need to trade him and try to get another running back. Remember, he was a second-round pick. He didn't play a lot early. He didn't get all these carries, all this mileage on his tires for the last four years. And but it's Tannehill. Everybody knows Tannehill's last season. They don't like Malik Willis, but they're going to have to give up a lot. Maybe not this year, maybe next year. You can trade in 2025, but most teams aren't thinking that far ahead because GMs, a lot of them be out of work by 2025. But anybody that watched Tannehill get hurt last season and how he struggled, he is not the quarterback he was when he had A.J. Brown. And they have a totally rebuilt offensive line. They need receivers. And so I'm not sure what they're going to do. I'll be surprised if they trade up to get a quarterback. I would not be surprised if they took University of Tennessee quarterback Hendon Hooker. That'd be a great spot for him.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys. Pick 'em.
There you go. John McClain with us, GallerySports.com. Houston 610, also with us on Tuesdays in the 5 o'clock hour.